Hello there, and welcome to Fixing the Sequel Trilogy, the Writers' Room podcast dedicated to fixing the Star Wars sequels. Each week, we take a closer look at one part of the galaxy, how the sequels ruined it, and how we might fix it in our version. I'm Bryce Quinn, and I'm joined by international man of mystery, Carmelo Keating. How have you been, Mello?
Yeah, good. I was thinking to myself, you were doing your intro, I'm like, I doubt he's going to have anything.
Because I haven't seen you for like a week now.
Right, I see. right. I was like, where is this
So you've been
from?
busy working on a university production and then also working at your actual job. So I haven't seen you at all.
No, it's
at
true.
home.
Yes, like there's been like 2-3 day periods during this week where it's like, haven't seen Bryce.
Been a good week. No, I'm joking. I'm also joined by the Migraine King, Sandro Karayan.
Hey.
How you doing? You got a migraine today?
Not yet.
Not yet, baby.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. So we usually give you a migraine talking about all this rewrite stuff. So we'll see.
Talking about rewrite stuff, I'm not sure if that's where we're going today. I'm not sure. I'm excited.
Honestly, I'm hoping this should be a migraine-free episode today.
Yeah.
Because we're going to be just doing a bit of a whinge.
This feels like a vent. It feels like a group venting
Yeah,
session.
Yep.
this is take the migraine thoughts out of the brain, put them out onto the internet,
Yeah.
and then they're not in our head anymore.
Boy,
Yeah,
this is
we'll-
the worst episode.
We'll see.
Yeah.
So this week, we give up on the show. That's right. Everyone, it's time to pack it in. The sequels are unfixable, and this whole project was doomed from the
I'm leaving
get-go.
Hogwarts, guys.
Just kidding. We're still writing, but we thought it would be fun to talk about some of the really annoying problems we've discovered while working on this project. Like any good Star Wars podcasters, we've bashed the hell out of the sequels plenty, but this episode will be focusing on how the writing is so bad, it makes it nearly impossible to even rewrite it. So that's the fun little intro. That's right, everyone.
Yeah.
We've given up on the show.
Okay.
I've got a bunch of notes. Mello, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, so I'm going to start us with a bit of context. Basically, we've been doing writers' rooms. We really have, with what time that we have, and prepping for this really fun.
Spent like a lot of time.
Yeah.
Just like staring at the wall. Personally, that's what I
No,
do.
genuinely, we get a map up. We link sort of characters and groups and sort of conflicts and plot
Motivations.
lines, motivations,
It
all
looks
sorts.
fucking atrocious.
Yeah, no, it's disgusting, especially the one that I made.
Oh, your one was the migraine causer for
Yeah,
Sandro.
yeah.
It was instant. He looked
Yeah.
at it, he was like, nah, I can't
There
with this.
was one where I almost wanted to walk out. It's the one where you were like, hold up.
Let me
Darth
explain.
Talon.
Yeah, oh, the Darth Talon one was good.
Oh, Talon's on the wall.
She's
boys.
on the wall, which means
Um,
she has to be in the scripts.
I mean, Darth Jar Jar's also on the wall.
which means he has to be in the scripts.
Mace Windu's also on the wall.
Okay.
Okay,
What do you got?
um,
What do you got,
so
Mello?
basically, I raised a point, which is something that I'm sure we've all thought about, and
Yeah.
it's something that you have to consider when doing this process, especially like with how long we've been doing this project for. Is it actually possible, and is it actually worth doing this?
Continuing the story.
Trying to actually write the sequel trilogy, because here's the number one problem is that episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is a kind of a perfect, cohesive, concluded story.
Kind of is.
Yeah.
Which is when, we started really thinking about this because we thought it was like, it's fine. Like the sequels were made. We can make a good story here. But the more we've thought about it, the more it's like, okay, well, Lucas has said multiple times the reason he switched to the prequels is because he's like, actually, the story's about Anakin, his fall and his redemption.
And he already had like pre-lore in the back of his head.
Yeah.
4 events.
And he did that. He made
it.
He made the thing, and you see the two parts of that. You see the fall of Anakin through the prequels, and then you see his redemption at the end of Return of the Jedi, and that's the story. And then Palpatine dies, and Vader dies, the Sith die,
Yep.
and Luke becomes the ultimate Jedi.
Yeah.
And fulfills the prophecy, etc., etc. The story's done.
Yep.
So when they announced we're making more Star Wars, no one really thought, hey, what's the story? Because they're all like, awesome, we get to see Leia, Han, and Luke in action now, finally.
And that comes to the first problem, that when opening up a closed book, the first thought in mind was money.
Yeah. I mean, Lucasfilm was acquired by Disney.
Yep.
And they were like, hey, Lucasfilm, make us some Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
We need more of those
Yep.
big money babies.
Yes, but it was make it immediately.
Yeah.
Start right now. You have a time constraint. I don't care how big and seemingly impossible this process is.
Yeah.
You're going to do it.
And so that brings us to what we were talking about just before, Sandro, is Lawrence Kasdan,
Lawrence Kasdan.
who has talked about multiple times the Luke Skywalker problem.
But
Yeah.
Lawrence Kasdan was already on the team before Disney even acquired Lucasfilm.
Yeah, so Lucas and Kasdan were working on scripts before
Yeah.
the Lucasfilm was acquired. And we can talk about Star Wars Underworld as well, because that was what was in active development. Sequels were just ideas.
Yeah, sorry, quick background. Lawrence Kasdan wrote Empire Strikes Back
Yes.
and was a co-writer, I believe, on Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so he was working with Lucas on sequel ideas and script ideas. But they weren't even in active development. They weren't working hard on that. What they were working hard on was a show called Star Wars Underworld, which was in production. They had scripts and they had concept art and they had heaps of shit, heaps of irons in the fire for that
Yep.
one up until the day Lucasfilm was acquired by Disney. And that whole project was shut. The whole thing.
Yeah.
And they lost like 10 years of work or something.
Fun fact about that. I think it was John Knoll, VFX supervisor, who pitched Rogue One.
Mhm.
He pitched that episode. So he pitched Rogue One as an episode of that show.
No, really?
Yeah,
That makes so much sense.
And then he was like, "Oh, it's not going to work." But then when Disney acquired, he's like, "Oh, okay."
And because in the Disney vaults or whatever,
Yeah.
they would have access to all that concept art and all of those ideas and those scripts and those characters and everything that Lucas was working on with the huge team of writers that they had. And that whole period, sorry, just quickly, is between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope.
Yeah.
So that's where Star Wars Underworld would have been set.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's why, we get Rogue One from that. So that's what they were working on. They weren't even working on the sequels.
Nah.
So what we've got is just like a couple of loose ideas. It was Darth Talon is
There
trying
was work,
to...
like they paid people. Like there was work being put into the sequels. There was more work being put into Underground, undoubtedly.
Yeah, exactly.
But there was like still work being put into the sequels to the point where like Lucas was trying to sell the extra work that he'd put into his sequels to Disney.
Yeah.
When they bought it, Disney didn't want it.
No, Disney was like, cool, this is great. We don't want this.
Yeah.
We're going to bring in our own writers and make it ourselves.
And I think maybe there's a bit of a problem there.
Yeah.
Because obviously, if we think back to that period in time, everyone was just fucking mad at George. Really
Yes.
mad. No one.
No, throw back your mind to what was the acquisition year? 2014? 2012.
Yeah.
No one liked Lucas because
No.
everyone hated the prequels. This was the truth. Like the majority of the fans were like,
Yep.
the prequels are shit.
Yep.
We want more Star Wars. And then they heard about the acquisition and they're like, oh my God, yes, Disney's going to acquire it. This is going to be so good. Take it away from Lucas.
And it was before, where we are at the point in time now where we've had time to think about it and look back, where it's like, okay, yeah, obviously there's the prequels, far from perfect, still so many problems. But in
Yes.
terms of creating a story that perfectly links up,
Yeah.
To the original trilogy, like there's a reason that this is a cohesive arc. And as much as there's problems and shit like that, there's
And it's still unique
politics
in its
and
own
stuff that he's
sense.
built
It's
in
not
it.
just like
Yeah.
a retread.
I think that's a big part of the reason people hated Phantom Menace. Is because they're like, this isn't Star Wars.
Mm.
This isn't Star Wars at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
But you get the 2012 acquisition plus 8 years up until 2020 or kind of where we are now. All those people have grown up.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of kids who grew up with the prequels and Clone Wars who have now become adults. Us. That's all of us. And we look back and we're like, we grew up with these movies. We fucking love them. And we have the capacity to go and watch video essays and explore why they actually work and why they're good. What the merits are, because there are merits.
Yeah.
And, obviously there's flaws as well. We recognize the flaws, but we recognize the merits. And then we can look at the flaws and merits of the original trilogy as well. And we say, okay, well, it's a little bit dated. It's not like the VFX don't hold up, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Even though it's like a huge feat of filmmaking, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
There's problems with the original trilogy as well.
It's funny you go there because it's a thought that often traces through my mind. I think I've probably brought it up behind the scenes a few times of like eventually the people growing up the Disney trilogy are going to grow up and they're probably still going to like have very fond memories of it.
I agree, and there will be kids who grew up with the sequel trilogy and enjoy them. But when you look at the merits and the flaws of the sequel trilogy, they do not hold a candle to the prequels or the original trilogy.
I thought you were about to quote Luke from Last Jedi there. For a
No,
second.
what was
when you look at the successes and failures of the legacy of the Jedi,
the legacy
is
of
failure.
the sequels is failure, baby.
It is. But yeah, no.
And we're going to talk about exactly why on this show.
Yes.
So stay tuned. We're doing a lot of rambling context because this has just been like turning over in our heads a lot recently.
Yes.
So that's why we're on this topic.
So where are we at now? Because I've spoken about we had that discussion about the why and the why this is so difficult. And for me, it's been about getting in the mindset of the why. It's like, okay, not only are we doing this for this project, this is great, this is something we're really passionate about doing, but we're not doing it for money. We're not like the writers were back in.
Absolutely we're not.
No, this is we're not in 2012 getting paid by Disney to write these things for a fuck ton of money. We're doing it for passion and actual purpose. And I have an actual purpose when it comes to this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And a why also is kind of generated out of spite for how bad the actual
That
sequel
was like
trilogy
the starting
was.
place, but we
Yeah.
got to I know the place I've got to, Mallory's probably similar.
Yeah.
Is we've found this story. We really love Star Wars,
Mhm.
but the story that we're interested in is about the Empire and the Emperor and fascism. And how,
Yes. Yeah.
after 20 years, fascism's going to try and come back because in the real world, we're seeing, in World War II, Nazi Germany existed. They did horrible things.
Yeah.
And now 50, 60, 70 years later, we're seeing the return of fascism and we're like, fucking, we don't like this at all.
Yeah.
So we want to say something about it.
Star Wars has always been a vessel for anti-capitalist and anti-fascist storytelling.
Which we've talked about a lot on this show.
Yeah.
And it's very much true. And if you think Star Wars isn't political, then I would encourage you to go and look up some of why that is.
Yes.
Especially George Lucas's interview with James Cameron. It's a really great example of them both talking about what they're inspired by in terms of politics.
It is just a little bit ironic, and we will acknowledge this, that whilst the content of the story is anti-capitalist, the Star Wars
The industry
media itself redefined merchandising.
You were supposed to destroy capitalism, not join it.
Oh, George.
But also,
I know you give to charity, but... Okay, so are we going to keep talking about us and our path, or are we going to talk about...
Well, that's our overall kind of, here's the story. We're not making it for money, obviously.
Yep.
We're making it because we love Star Wars. We think the sequels are bad, and we would love to rewrite them because we feel like they are deeply imperfect and need rewriting.
Yep.
And the story we're interested in exploring more is the return of fascism after 20 years of being defeated. So that's kind of where we're at with all of this. So here are our challenges for that progress, for that process. Firstly, Ben starts as a Sith in The Force Awakens. That's my first note.
Yeah, what is this? Wait, what?
What are you fucking on about?
Sorry. You're saying like the problems in the existing...
Yeah.
He's not a Sith.
I mean, he's a fucking...
Right.
He's got a red lightsaber, he's evil.
So the character of Ben Solo.
The character of Ben Solo in general, but specifically, if we're going to hone in on like a specific thing, he starts that way.
Yes.
All of the things that happened leading up to that, off camera, it's been 26 years since Return of the Jedi. Luke is a hermit. Leia and Han have both failed Ben, and none of that is on screen. We have to just infer that our heroes, deeply beloved characters, have all failed in a huge way for this character.
And sorry, gonna put this out here for the mainstream audience, because I think people need to understand this. There is a difference between what is realistic in terms of how people change over 30 years in reality versus storytelling.
Yes.
And we've been very clear about this. You cannot change the fundamentals of a character that we haven't seen in 30 years, that the story hasn't seen in 30 years, even if it might be accurate, okay?
Yeah.
Evolve them in ways where it's like, yes, they have this job now, but you can't change what's core to them because the audience is going to be left asking so many questions.
Especially when those events are off screen and they're never going to be explored in any meaningful way.
No.
So, a great example of how to do this right is Avatar.
No, do it.
The Legend of Korra.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you have your crew in the old days. I'm sorry if you're not familiar with the Avatar animated show. You've got to go watch it because I talk about it so much. So, you've got Aang, Katara, Sokka, and Toph. That's your crew. And then, and I guess Zuko as well. And then you
guess Zuko is disrespect.
You skip 20 years, and then when you see these characters, it's not their story. You got Katara, who is an old wise healer who lives in the South Pole, and then Sokka has passed away, and Toph is a hermit. But you believe it because Toph was always angry and cranky and crotchety, and she would never be happy with the way things were. So when you find out that her two daughters are estranged from her, and they don't live in the same place, they don't talk to each other, their family is broken, and Toph is nowhere to be found, and she's ignoring these problems, you're like, yeah, that checks out.
Yeah.
And in the show, she has an arc where it's sort of like they sort of fix it and resolve some of these issues, but she doesn't change entirely as a person. She's always Toph, and you always believe that that's her story, that she never really gets her life together because that's who she is.
Yep. Plus, that's after 70 years.
And it's a long, long time.
Yeah.
So, and that's, I think, a good parallel to what we see in The Force Awakens. How on earth do we get one of the greatest Jedi who ever lived goes to being a hermit who has failed all of his Padawans and has failed his nephew? It's just so much.
How have you taken the ultimate compassionate Jedi who would put down his fucking lightsaber to help his evil fucking dad return to the light side?
And then in the episode 8, have him raise a lightsaber against Ben, which is an interesting thing that is, it's just not compelling enough, and it's not believable when you end the last story, he is like the most compassionate Jedi, and then you begin the next story, he's a failure.
Yeah.
It's too radical of a shift.
You didn't show us how he got there.
Exactly.
You take a character like Han Solo, whose entire journey in the original trilogy is
to not be so greedy.
Yeah, well, yeah, and overcoming that sort of that life of crime and that whole idea that he, him being a criminal is a front.
Yeah,
the fact that he is a good person.
Beneath your rough exterior is a heart of gold.
Yep.
And then at the end of Return of the Jedi, the heart of gold is the thing that you see first now. He's
a
general of the rebellion, and he's a great pilot. He's a good dude.
You see that guy is like, he loves the people around him. You could see, perhaps, I think, that person could go on to be a loving, caring husband, father, etc. And so where do we find him in Force Awakens? He's a fucking loser.
He's a loser. He's lost everything. He's gone back to smuggling, and he's estranged from Leia because of what happened to their son. And all of that is off camera.
Yeah.
And you don't see any of it.
The only person who's consistent with how they were is Leia.
It's probably Leia.
Yeah.
I mean, Leia's fine in the sense that she's so bland that they couldn't have fucked it up. She doesn't do anything interesting in that movie.
Disrespect, yeah. So yes, problems, big old problems there. But yeah, you're right. Ben Solo.
So Ben is the core of that, and because this all comes from the fact that they needed to have Ben start as a Sith or as a Kylo Ren, whatever, so that they could have a villain with a red lightsaber.
Yeah, they were hell bent on that. Yeah. That key point of just having a villain with a red lightsaber.
So all of this is suffering because of that.
Yeah.
Because this decision was made writing wise.
And it's like, okay, obviously the mainstream audience hasn't seen this, but the Star Wars universe has gone through literal 1,000-year periods where no one has been in the galaxy with a red lightsaber. You know, before the prequels, there wasn't anyone.
Yeah, Qui-Gon is like, what? It's a Sith? No way. And the Jedi Council's like, absolutely not. We don't believe you.
That's why it's so profound. That's why this chapter
You're colorblind, Qui-Gon.
in the timeline is so important. Because it's, that whole period of the Return of the Sith, what we're talking about, is a period that's literally after that again, where they're gone.
So, here's like where the rant comes in. Here's the whinging. If we have him start as a Padawan, which is our idea, is our fix.
Like an older Padawan, like an 18-year-old
18-year-old Padawan heading towards his Jedi Knight trials. How does he fall to the dark side, especially when there's no Sith around? What compels him to fall? If we're going to do the fall at all, if we're going to do a fall and a redemption, which is one of our favorite parts of Kylo Ren and one of the fans, the audience's favorite parts about him, that's the interesting part, is seeing his fall and his redemption.
Yeah.
It wasn't done well in the sequels,
No.
but people want to see that done well because those stories are really fascinating.
Yeah. But the thing with Ben is that we like him as a character. We care about him as a character. We don't want to make him a Vader because we don't want to make him irredeemable. I think we're quite consistent with that. We don't want him to go too far. I think we want him to be representative of like the sort of the youth who can be very easily misled, misinformed in the modern day.
Yes, that's been something we've been very interested in following along as well, because we've seen that in our own lives of like guys getting led down the red pill pipeline is what it's called.
Path.
The Andrew Tate. If you listen to Andrew Tate, we don't align with his views on women on this show, so maybe go away.
Although you've probably figured that out.
You probably figured that out if you listen to the show, but I just want to reiterate.
Yep. So massive problems with Ben.
So that's the first part of the whinging is like, if we're going to do this, we're going to have him a Padawan, which is an interesting fix. How does he become a Sith and fall? Because there's no Sith. The next part of the whinge is Luke his teacher? And if so, how do they have conflict? Is Luke a bad teacher? We don't want him to be a bad teacher, but also if Ben's going to fall, it kind of feels like he needs to be a bad teacher. So how do we do that story? How do we have Luke be a compelling character who is flawed and yet is still true to Return of the Jedi, Luke?
But not heavily flawed. And we kind of like...
flawed, but not too flawed, you know?
He's... It's got to be this whole thing of, like, they just don't get each other.
Yeah.
There's a misunderstanding there. Luke's perhaps just not the right teacher for Ben. That whole...
I think that's an interesting story, too, of just, like, you're not the right teacher. You're just not the right... You're not gelling with Ben, because I think that's, true to real life
And maybe that's part of the messaging with Ben. It's like, okay, these people who can be corrupted by this sort of, like, media, maybe they're not actually bad people. They're just easily swayed, and that no one progressive, no one good, no one healthy, no one positive has ever been able to get through to them because they're just not speaking their language.
Yeah, it's all about hearing, and this is something I talk about a lot. It's like you can be receiving the same advice over and over again for years from all sorts of different people, but it might not be until the one right person at the one right time says the one right thing that just like strikes through and hits your noggin.
Yeah.
And you go, oh shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now I get it. Now I actually understand what people have been trying to tell me.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it's like, when in this political sphere, there's a reason that everyone arcs up at each other, because when someone's yelling at you, you just want to yell back. When you have a real conversation with someone that you want to be productive, you're not condescending, you're not trying to belittle them, you might actually get through to them. Okay, the Palpatine of it all.
And then there's the Sith of it all. That's one of my later notes as well.
Later notes?
Later in terms of the order I wrote them.
Okay, right, yeah.
We can jump to it now.
Okay, big thing there. Look, we're not trying to do what the sequels did. We're not trying to do a resurrection which ruins the Return of the Jedi. Again, we're not trying to rip a page out of that perfect book and burn it and rewrite it. It's besmirching that reputation. We've spoken before about the whole, Vader's main sacrifice was more about saving Luke than it was about defeating the Sith, but that, that's fine. Up to your own thing.
That is an interpretation thing for sure.
But, we're still trying to find a villain that is a carryover. The thing that I've been pushing for is influence. It's the influence of Palpatine, same as the influence of any dictator throughout history. If it's, if people were alive to have seen it and they liked it, then it's going to continue.
Yes, and, sure enough, that's what we're seeing in real life. But with the Palpatine of it all, we want to explore Palpatine and his influence because for the first 6 movies, that was what it was about. It's Palpatine's influence on the galaxy and what he's trying to do as a horribly evil person.
Yep.
So when we're doing the sequel trilogy, it only felt right that he be a big part of the story. No matter what kind of influence he has to be involved in some way because as a villain, it's his villain story. This is his villain arc, and it made sense for it to be all the way through. My first pitch to you guys was that it'd be clone Palpatine.
Yeah.
And he's the one pulling
We
the
ran on
strings.
that for a long
And we were running on that for a while,
Because
and then we just sat and we thought, and we were like, this just doesn't work.
Yeah,
it just doesn't work, man.
Well, we were there because it's a writing evolution thing. That's the easy, more literal train of thought. Okay, so if we want the influence of Palpatine, why not a Palpatine itself?
Yeah.
Whereas we're going to have to put in the legwork a bit more. It's a much more difficult process to actually have it be a real felt influence, and still know that it is his influence. But that's the right thing to do.
Yeah. And it's a more interesting, compelling story just to have it be like, oh, these characters, like Phasma or Hux, are following in the path of, fucking Hitler, Palpatine, and saying, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
And so they're saying to the galaxy, we're not doing that, and then everyone else is like, okay, well, your right hand's telling me this, and your left hand is doing some evil shit that Palpatine would have loved.
Yeah. But that'll create greater depth for the characters, greater depth for the world, stuff like that,
and a better story. But how do we have Palpatine be there and be involved in an interesting way?
Another big issue we've been having, and I think Patrick Willem summarized something really good when he was talking about
another YouTuber we love is Patrick Willem.
I've really gotten into him recently.
Yeah,
he was talking about JJ and the big job, or no, I think he was talking about just about Star Wars in general. The job that The Force Awakens had. They had 3 jobs. They had to create a Star Wars film that felt like Star Wars.
Yep.
They had to create new and interesting characters, and I think they did that.
I think
very charismatic, great, fun characters in 7, and they had to make good world building.
Yeah, the good world building. That's the kicker.
And that's the thing that's really been difficult. That's the thing that they didn't do. So we're trying to fix that while still doing those other 2 things.
I think so the Palpatine thing, in terms of the world building, he's not involved in Force Awakens at all, and I don't know if he necessarily has to. But the question for us, as writers building out context, if he left his instructions to anyone, who was it, and what were those instructions?
Yes.
So Operation Cinder, for example, we love the idea that he was just like, torch everything, because that's what the Nazis did in World War II as well. They're like, torch everything, no evidence, no files are left. And there was a couple of
people who tried to stop.
People who, tried and in most cases, I think, succeeded to stop a lot of those records getting burned by Hitler, but a lot of those things did get burned. And it was, horribly tragic to lose all that information. But if we see the same thing happen, Operation Cinder, that means that 1, we know Palpatine has some contingencies for his death, and 2, he would have other ones to maybe resurrect himself using Sith magic, which is a cool story, but people might hate it.
Yeah, but look, I think people have to just understand the character of Palpatine.
Yeah.
That, of course, that guy sought eternal life above all else. He never respected the Sith, the rule of 2. He respected himself. He always had all of these little cronies, all these people in his pockets. Once more was done, that's fine. I've already got Dooku.
I already had one ready to go.
Up Anakin to kill Dooku and then replace him. Grievous is a fucking tool.
Yeah.
I got Vader and I hate Vader. Vader's a fuckhead. I'm going to replace Vader with anyone, you know? Yeah. Fuck you, Palpatine.
No, Palpatine's great. He's a truly, really good villain. And it's just trying to figure out the motivation of what he would do and how that plan could create an interesting story. So, something I've been pitching recently is that Exegol is Starkiller Base. That was the original plan for the Death Star, the inspiration for it, sorry. And the plan is to use Exegol to create immortality, and that's the goal, which is a wild idea to have the blowing up a planet be used as a dark side power to resurrect yourself.
But we're trying everything.
Yes.
At this point. And we might as well. I don't know. A big issue that we have been having is does the big bad villain need to be a dark side user thing, whatever?
Here's a question. So this is the whinging question for you, audience. What do you think? Because we're lost. Does they need to have a red lightsaber? Because me and Sandro were like, yeah, they do, and Melo's like, absolutely no, they don't.
Yes. Okay. Look, I'm not falling prey to some sort of marketing ploy. I don't think we need to see a red lightsaber to know that there's a villain. I think we can create interesting, compelling villains who don't have the Force, who don't have lightsabers, and I think it poses something new, something interesting, a new challenge. Very challenging, of course, for us. But hey, we're doing it to ourselves.
It's just if there's not a red lightsaber, how is it a mainline Skywalker saga movie?
Yes.
About good versus evil, because you got the red lightsaber, which is evil, versus the blue or green lightsaber, which is not evil.
I'm not even at that point. It's like, does it have to be a main villain? I just want to see a red lightsaber fight a blue lightsaber.
Can I give you one in the whole trilogy, or do you want it in the first film?
I want it in the first film.
Every movie.
Ideally, in each film, you have red versus blue or green at least once, at least one time. You know what I mean?
It's kind of like almost like your big piece. It's like one of your big things. You go to watch Star Wars. You want to watch some lightsabers fight each other.
That's why I go.
It's a fun time.
Yeah. Okay, so this I think like kind of brings me to another point, which is like the personal thing of the why.
Yeah.
Why to tell this story, why we're doing this. Obviously, we have our whole like, Star Wars is a great vessel. But I've been thinking so much about this trilogy and its place and its role.
Yeah.
I've whinged before about the whole Skywalker saga thing. That idea in general was stupid.
Yeah, so I brought up Skywalker saga. I set off Mello now.
Yeah.
Stupid dumb marketing thing. Because
that was a dumb Disney marketing thing,
again,
for sure.
Yeah. Only did it for Rise of Skywalker.
But it's still a saga. Like, it's a mainline trilogy.
It is a saga.
It is, but they only called it that, and also they only called 9 the last film to get bumps in seats.
Oh, for sure. But
Absolutely.
it was a saga when it was just 6.
Yes.
Still, Mello.
Yeah. But and we see that now though, because like they've got a Rey movie, even though she's not the main character, coming out 15 years later. Tell me how that's not episode 10.
Because it's not the Skywalker saga.
It's not in the saga. Because it's not a trilogy.
Boys, I have a new objective. Maybe not a new objective, maybe something subconscious, but something I've been thinking about. That is, this trilogy, I would like to end it in a way that opens up the Star Wars galaxy.
Okay.
So that you'd leave off from 9 thinking these stories can continue in this timeline. That at the end of it all, it's not about the Palpatines. It's not about the Skywalkers. That there can be other heroes, and there are more stories to tell going beyond. So I'm not trying to say end the Skywalker bloodline or anything like that, but maybe end the focus.
Tie up all their stories.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I agree with you, but I think not for the same reasons. Because I wanna tie up all the stories, and I think there's a lot of people out there who really want to see Han, Leia, and Luke in the period post the Civil War, whether that's directly after or 20 years after. I think people want to see that, and I think that's a lot of the reason why people hated the sequel so much, is because they didn't get to see that at all.
Yep.
These characters either died really quickly or were not shown in a favorable way. So I think, people want to see those stories, and I think tying up and ending those stories is a good idea.
Yes.
It's just, I'm just struggling to figure out how they should end. And if we're going to end those stories, what are the new characters that are being introduced, and how are they exploring the galaxy?
Yeah. And look, so obviously we got to give our respect to the old generation, but like, we have to focus on this new one. It's about them.
A big problem's always, since the very beginning, is legacy characters. Doing them justice, keeping their personalities the same, but still feeling like they've grown up.
Yeah. And also having them be interesting in the story.
Interesting in the story without them taking over the entire plot. And like
Lawrence Kasdan's big thing. Every time Luke Skywalker comes in, no one cares about anything else. Holy shit, it's Luke Skywalker.
It's holy shit.
And that's the quote from Lawrence Kasdan.
Yeah, is that whole they treated him like a deity.
Yeah.
We're not doing that. Not really.
But I think, Lawrence Kasdan, very smart man, and he gets it. The idea that if we put Luke in a scene, most likely people aren't going to care about anyone else in that scene. They want to see what Luke's doing, which is fair enough.
It's fair enough. It's the character you're attached to already.
You're already attached to him. He's supposed to have godlike powers from, everything, people have read in Legends. Silly EU fucking powers.
Yeah. Okay. So we should talk about the main character of this trilogy.
Rey.
Which is still Rey. And the problems with our biggest problem character.
I think this ties into one of the things I wrote down, which is there's too many moving pieces.
Yes.
One of the first treatment I wrote, it had Ben and Luke and their story on an island, Leia and Lando and their story in the Senate, and then Rey and Finn's story on the Outer Rim. And they didn't really meet up at all until the end. And Ben didn't even do it at all.
That's only because we feel obligated to show the original characters at all.
So in terms of obligation, my starting place for this was, let's take the sequel trilogy movies. Let's take all the characters and things they introduced, and let's see if we can rewrite it and remix it so that it's better. And the more we've done that, the more it's like, I don't think that's possible. No. I think we really, truly have to go back to the drawing board and scrap some of these characters, like Poe, which we've done. We've scrapped him in our recent work.
Yep.
And go back to the drawing board, start from scratch, and scrap some characters and redraw all of their starting places, and then throw them into the story and watch them work. some play.
Salvage whoever we can, things that we do really like. But in case you haven't already picked up on it, this is less fixing the sequel trilogy as it is rewriting it.
Yeah, rewriting it.
Recreating.
It has to be done.
Yeah.
But Ray, big problem, because Ray needs to be the main character still.
We want Ray to be the main character, and figuring out, okay, why? Because you got to have a good answer for these things. And my pitch to you guys was, was this your pitch? Who came up with this idea that Ray's a Force child? I think that was maybe you. Yeah. So Ray's a Force child. Cool. That's a really interesting way to tie into the dyad. That would make sense if Palpatine makes a Force child and Vader has a grandkid. That would make sense that they're sort of tied together in the Force. Cool. That works.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe the Rey Force child thinks she's also kind of a Horcrux that'll allow Palpatine to be resurrected from death. That's cool as well. It's like an extrapolation of those ideas.
Yeah.
And it makes Rey really important to the plot. But if we introduce Rey, who is not a part of the Skywalker family and is maybe a bounty hunter on the Outer Rim, that's introducing a whole lot of shit to the story that we've got to find a way to tie in.
Yeah. And it's there's also a reason in terms of like the why in the universe. Why are we picking up the story now?
Why now? Is a really big one.
Yeah, and that's
changed.
That keeps tying back to our world building, and I think we I feel like we're still close with it when it comes to this whole the underworld. I think the underworld is the right way to go in terms of like, well, who's the next villain? Where does the next villain come from? It does not come from another galaxy called the Yuuzhan Vong. It comes.
That's definite for sure.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
It's internal, and it's time to look at a massive group and a massive problem in the galaxy that's always been there. That because of big empires and stuff, we're just not focusing on, crime.
Yeah.
My big problem whenever you guys bring up the importance, or I guess the scale of which the underworld are going to be in the story, and this is a problem I've found, is it feels like it completely undermines the thing that we've been talking about the past half an hour being the big theme of the legacy of the Empire.
Yeah.
It completely takes away, you're talking about, oh yeah, the big villain has to be the underworld, but the whole themes are based around the resurgence of fascism.
Yeah.
So it makes no sense for them to be the big villain.
Well, but you just
it's kind of like trying to juggle these two forces.
Yeah,
that
it's. I think it's because we've got the world building solution, which is the crime world has this huge power vacuum post the Civil War, which would allow them to grow hugely.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But then our drive from our place of writing and themes is exploring the resurgence of fascism post a long period post the war, and those two things don't necessarily naturally cohese together.
Yeah, I don't know. When you look at those. When you look at criminal empires and syndicates, they don't strike me as the most progressive bunch.
Other than the idea that we've been playing with for a while of the this fascism, this resurgence of fascism coming in to misguide and take the trust of the political system by getting rid of the underworld.
Then there's a question of, if we're having a conflict, obviously Star Wars, have to have that.
We do believe there has to be war of some kind. Probably. It is a Star Wars.
Yeah. No one wants to watch Star Peace.
No, they don't. Conflict is where interesting stories happen.
Yeah, but it's the whole. Does it have to be a big galaxy-wide war?
Yeah.
Do we need that to make it interesting, or can it be more systems?
And I think this also ties into the question of the world building with character building. Leia, Han, and Luke fought really hard along with the rebels to create peace, to build the New Republic, and to have peacetime be a thing.
Yep.
So if we have a full-scale galactic war, in some way, that is going to undermine the peace that they worked so hard to achieve.
We can't have had the
which
heroes
we don't want to do.
Yeah.
We don't want the heroes, because it could be a failure on their part.
Yep. And I think the one thing that I'm kind of settling on that seems to make sense is that, again, let's look at society. We do a big war. 20 years later, we do another big war. People don't want big wars anymore, and it turns into a bunch of small wars which have their own evil, really dark implications.
Yeah.
But put that then in the Star Wars universe. Okay, so we build the New Republic again. We rebuild it. Great. They wouldn't want war either. Doesn't mean conflict in the galaxy doesn't exist. And I'm not going to say that they'd get complacent, but they would, sit in their sort of comfortable armchairs, as it were, and not want to do things outside of their own sphere. As long as their New Republic is protected, why should they? Why would they?
Another big, I think, problem is because of how beautifully it bookends at the end of Return of the Jedi.
Yeah,
and we get the feeling that these characters have won. This is a big win. This is our end.
We've defeated the oppressive, fascistic fucking government, and we're going to overthrow it with our own beautiful socialist utopia.
Yeah, it's hard to go forward a few years later, like 20 years later, 30 years later, and be like, oh, but there were mistakes made. Whereas going back and doing the prequels, George doesn't try to like do a really happy book ending at the end of Revenge of the Sith.
No, he gets to say, it sucks.
Yeah. He's like, he shows it. It's a movie purely centered around failure and how we ended up in the point that we're at the start of.
It starts with a really corrupt system that it gets even more corrupted and turned into fascism. And it shows how governments that sort of work for some people can be corrupted and fall to work for one person or a very small group of people.
So at the end of Revenge of the Sith, we see our heroes, for the most part, fail.
Yeah.
And at the end of Return of the Jedi, we see our heroes succeed. They win. And it's hard to come back from a win
and say, hey, here's this failure that now you need to overcome again kind of thing.
Yeah, but there's our message though, isn't it? Okay. You know,
which is something we want to talk about. Go ahead, Mello.
Yeah, okay. Well, World War II ends, right? You know, quote, heroes win. You know, like
it's a bit complicated in the real world, but yeah.
This is we are talking about stuff.
Hitler loses, which means that everyone else wins.
That's
but
a win. All of the wars since.
All of the wars since have been really messy because of the advent of TV and being able to watch Vietnam on the news.
Yeah,
which is why Star Wars exists.
Yeah,
or it's a big part of the inspiration.
But
for the
you know,
anyway.
like I think you can link all wars now back to the last major wars. You know, I think that's fair enough.
Yeah.
All modern warfare has come from shit that happened in World War I and II, and it just keeps going.
Yeah.
Cold War, all of it. But there's the message, right? It's that, you know, okay, we win a big war. We're not in utopia in the real world by any means.
Good
so
point.
why the fuck should they be?
That's a good point. That's a good point. And, you know, in our world, you know, in Australia, we get to live in very much peace and security.
Yeah.
But we know that our country is involved with countries like the United States who are very actively involved with active conflicts in places like Israel and Palestine right now. So the conflict is happening, and it's very important, but we are safe where we are. So I feel like there's a reality we can be inspired by for writing this.
But then in terms of like, okay, how do you not besmirch the reputation and the hard work of the original trilogy characters? Okay, they're heroes. Heroes don't see a problem, fix the problem once.
Yeah.
If there are problems, it's their life's journey. They keep doing it. If they are real heroes, they will keep fighting until the end, even if that fight doesn't necessarily mean guns blazing.
I think, but to the end, like you said, I agree. But the end can mean not death. The end can be for Luke, for example. I'm retiring. I'm going to be a Jedi Master now. I don't fight anymore. I'm going to train people who can fight evil.
Yeah,
that's the goal.
And that's the fighting for the future, for generations.
Yeah, but you're still like doing it.
That's a good fight.
And then Leia is like, well, I'm not going to pick up a blaster, but I am going to be a politician, and I am going to stay in politics and try and make change here.
Yeah,
I don't know what the fuck Han's going to do. I don't know what he's up to, but he's doing something.
So yeah, I don't know. Like
I agree with you though.
Yeah.
Overall, it is about fascism returning, which means the evil will return. Evil will always return, and there's always got to be people there who will fight against that evil. That's the point. That's the message. It's not like the good and the bad is not a yin and yang. All right, motherfucker. It's bad sucks, and it's got to be fought against all the time.
So enter this new generation.
Which is a simple message, but it's good.
That's what's so interesting. What can be interesting about this new generation is it's like, aren't we seemingly in this time of peace? There's always something sinister. There is always something underneath. Peace is not real, and you know,
Shit.
That's right.
Peace isn't real. Utopia is not real.
Well, that's the whole point of utopia. Utopia isn't achievable because the minute you think you're in utopia,
it falls.
They've won.
Yeah. No, it's you know, you have to fight for peace.
Absolutely.
You can't be a peaceful warrior or an advocate for peace. Well, you can, but
no.
It's like, if you really want to make a change, sometimes you got to get violent.
Well, no, it's
what I
but
believe
it's like,
anyway.
you know, you got to stir up conflict. It's like, you know, like because you know what's not peaceful is going to your boss and saying I'm not getting paid enough. You know, that's conflict.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily have to be aggressive. That can be productive sort of conversation, but it's still conflict because you know it's you want something and they have the option to give that to you or not.
I think it's the difference between peace and between freedom for a lot of people. This is what I heard. I'm messing up the quote, but it was a really good quote I heard the other day. It's like, I seem peaceful right now. And it was, I think it was back in the 60s. It was a black man talking to a white man. He's like, I seem peaceful. And he's like, no, you seem free. And he's like, no, I seem peaceful. I am not free. I don't have the freedom to walk around and not be called slurs. I don't have the freedom to buy a house in your side of town, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it's, you know, the difference between there is peacetime, but there are people who are not free in that piece. And I think, you know, exploring that somehow would be really good. It's just, these really big questions for us as writers of like how to do all this, how to balance all of these things when we're continuing a story. And like you said, Sandro, not returning to a place that was maybe worse in some ways and saying, look at how we got to this really bad place in terms of, the fascistic government having control over the galaxy. Yeah. Look at how we started with the Republic and how it fell and became the Empire.
Yeah. Sorry. So just to round out my point, it's this new generation, it's the whole, the galaxy is seemingly at peace. No, there's still stuff going on. And I think it's the new generation discovering that there is still evil going on. It still persists. And it's getting them to give a shit. Yeah. Same deal as the modern day. It's getting people our generation or, older generations probably more so. Who are sitting at home when there's wars going on or there's an important election that can help make change and be progressive.
They say, no, I don't want to vote in that.
Yeah.
I don't believe in voting.
It's getting people who, why should we give a shit? Isn't life good? Yeah. To realize, no, it's not.
It's not. And maybe it might be good for you. Yeah. But it's not good for some other people.
Have some basic fucking empathy and care about someone else,
Just a quick thing on the voting. I'm a big proponent of voting. I believe in voting. It's the institution put in place so that we can affect change in government and policy. If you don't vote, I would heavily advise that I would suggest that you
go vote.
Think about that and go vote.
Is that a threat?
No, it's not a threat. It's not a threat. I don't want to be too aggressive in terms of we want to talk about Star Wars and not as much the real world. The real world should inspire our Star Wars writing. And our thoughts on the real world, we will share them. We don't want to impose them on anyone else because that's what idiots do.
That being said, we are also Australian, and there are penalties for not voting.
You know what? That's a good point. No, well, I know
there's
some people who choose not to vote.
There
I actually know some people personally.
There are people that will just cop the fine.
How the fuck do you get away with not voting every year? It's ridiculous.
Also, in terms of imposing thoughts and opinions, we're not going to do it directly, allegorically through the story.
And again, we are Australian, so we're going to do it with a lot of swear words. So if you're listening to this and you're like, fuck, these cunts are aggressive. We're born that way.
There's the freedom that we've been missing. Bloody Andor dropped the first, shit in Star Wars, and they were going to drop the first F-bomb as well. Yeah. Fuck it, we'll do it.
No, we'll fucking do it.
This is Aussie Star Wars.
Aussie Star Wars is going to be wild, don't you worry.
Yeah.
So, we've gone on long tangent soapboxes today. It's been a while since we've gone to the soapbox, so this is good. We gotta do it every now and then. Get it out of the system. We want to introduce conflict without taking away the peace that the rebels fought so hard for. It's Star Wars, so we need wars. Our characters need to be important. They need to be the only ones up for the job, which means that the New Republic can't just solve all the problems for them. So I think that's another thing as well. The New Republic, is the New Republic just good? Because if we're saying, here's the inspiration Lucas had. The Empire was, for him, inspired by the Americans, by the US, who were fighting against the Vietnamese. So the Viet Cong is the rebels. In that very simple, metaphor, analogy, whatever. So when they win, and let's say the Viet Cong won and overthrew the United States, and they make their own government, what does that utopia look like? What does that really look like? And obviously, I'm a huge socialist. I'm not fucking quiet about it. So I'm saying the New Republic should have socialist policies. Everyone should be taken care of. There should be ideally no poor or homeless or anything like that. Medicare for all, etc., etc.
Yeah, but I think the easier thing to do, because this is the problem. The rebels are so interesting because it's the heroes being kind of on the back foot, being smaller.
They're the guerrilla underdog fighters, which is the fun story.
Yes, and we can't do that again because it's copying. That's boring. Fair enough. But no one said we had to have the New Republic be involved in the conflict, and they really could be, care about themselves but be apathetic outside of their own New Republic.
They could do apathy. They could be like, no, we're not getting involved in this conflict. We have created a perfect spherical bubble of peace within the galaxy. And if you're outside of it, we don't care.
Yeah, hey, do you want to join the New Republic? Great, do that. But we're not going to give a shit otherwise.
And then you create a force that's able to fully overthrow that. It kind of just seems like, so they're just going to let themselves be destroyed. So that's it.
That's the thing as well. It's like if the underworld grows into a huge threat, you reckon maybe the New Republic would do something about that. They'd go to war.
Which is why I've been thinking about, okay, is it potentially more interesting now to zero in on the criminal worlds versus, independent systems?
Yeah.
Perhaps. I don't know. That feels a bit more like reality, a bit more like life, where it's like, okay, there's conflicts happening all over the world, and here's the Americas, here's the West with power to do stuff about it. Do they? And even should they get involved? It's not, in some places.
Yeah.
Most cases, not there. Not there. They really shouldn't.
American interventionalism.
Yeah, literally.
I get heard
that
tossed
sort of
around
shit.
a lot.
Yeah, for sure. this does circle back. I'm going to sound like an old record probably, but does circle back, and I feel like this very process that's just happened is a good example of why we've been struggling so much, because then that instigates, but what does that have to do with the resurgence of fascism? What does that have to do with the imperial sway and the imperial afterlife of Sidious?
We don't have to draw such like real world implications in terms of government. But
and if we're smart, we probably shouldn't.
No, but maybe more on a moral standpoint, or of a messaging standpoint. Simply that if there is a problem and you have the ability to do something about it and you don't, you're kind of a bad person.
Yeah, but I think, that works as a really good individual message for someone like Spider-Man.
Yes.
You have these superpowers. You're choosing to use them for selfish gain. Your uncle dies. You should use them for moral, community good. That's a great message.
And let's maybe focus in on the character story there.
Character story,
sure.
yes. But if you're talking governments,
yeah, then
things gets a lot more difficult and complicated, because if the government gets involved with a situation that maybe they shouldn't be getting involved in, that's a war. And that's a big, messy, complicated situation.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is once again our rant session. We're not coming up with many ideas today, which is fine.
Yeah,
fine for me anyway.
Productive.
What's some other issues we've run into? I feel like we went past a few Ray things.
Yeah,
making Ray prevalent within the story. I know you already pretty much touched on this, but yeah, like keeping her as like a main character in the world, where making her feel relevant to the story, making her feel like she actually has a place. And not just like is kind of randomly thrown in, but she's the main character. But still giving her a hero's journey where she has to decide to instigate going out and like fighting for the New Republic, or fighting with Luke,
fighting with the Jedi or something. Yeah.
Yeah, fighting against evil.
Yep. I don't know. So, but she's the character who I want to explore that sort of idea of like, why should I do anything about it? And
that could be cool.
Yeah.
That could be really cool. It's like the apathy of like, oh look, this galaxy I live in is so complicated and so messy. I don't even know what the good side is.
Yeah.
I don't even know who's good and who's bad. It's too complicated.
Yeah.
I don't want to think about it.
Yeah. Well, time to become a hero.
Yeah. Hero's journey.
Time to learn.
Time to learn. You got to get pulled into it.
Yeah. But willingly, you've got to decide to be a better person.
If you listen to the show, you've heard a lot of our solutions and ideas we've thrown out, but here's like us opening up to the camera and to the microphone a bit about how difficult we've found it recently. I know next week we're going to be doing some kind of episode without you, Mello, because you're on a fun cruise going somewhere.
Yeah.
Where is it again? Where are you going?
Vanuatu and New Caledonia.
Vanuatu and New Caledonia, which
That's
is so
fun.
cool.
Yeah.
So you'll be off for next week. We're going to bring on probably Cole if he's free, which would be great. Maybe Emily if she's free. Unlikely. She's very busy with uni. But so we're going to be bringing on someone, and we're going to think about talking about Babu Freak. Because that's a really important topic we haven't dived into much.
It is. It is absolutely crucial, especially after like hearing this episode. I know you're probably all wondering, where's Babu? What's Babu doing?
Yeah, Babu's the key to all of this.
And
so why haven't we talked about him to bring him in?
He's on the board. Babu's important.
So that's on the docket for next week. Maybe we might change our minds.
Babu might fix.
He might
the
be.
entire
He
thing.
might literally be the key to all of this.
Yeah.
Anyways, so that's the plan, because that episode will allow us a bit of freedom to, in between working on that and making the next episode after that, we can do some writing and try and bring all of these problems we've been ranting and raving about this episode and create solutions for them, at least temporary solutions, so that we can decide, okay, at least for now, we're going to do this, this, and this, and carry that forward through our writing boot camp, which will be our November project, which we're all I'm very excited about, but I'm also like trepidatious.
Absolutely.
So,
As a closing question, I guess, for you
closing
guys,
question.
something I started doing a tiny bit back. I think when did we go out to the lake? I think
Like 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I just started.
The water skiing champions episode. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I started trying to just deconstruct everything. I found it so helpful being with you guys. You guys will just like reconstruct the story as is. I tried just breaking the entire thing down,
Okay.
scrapping every character,
Yeah.
Okay.
scrapping everything, asking myself, what if we said it like 40 years after? What if we said it like 80 years after?
Mhm.
Wow.
Like, and it becomes like this weird thing of what feels compelling. What do we want to see? Like, we want to see like a tie-in with our characters from before. What do you think? Do you think this is the right period to be making a Star Wars trilogy? The time period that we have chosen?
I think so. But I'd be curious to hear some arguments from you guys, because I think it is. What do you think, Mello? I think this is the right time. The right period of time.
20 to 30 years after.
Yeah.
I think is right, so long as there's as long as we can rationalize as why what has happened, what's transpired, why has some sort of threat or conflict been able to emerge.
I think in terms of a trilogy, because we've talked a lot about the fall of Coruscant and how we want to do a TV show series of like a bit of writing for that, just to see like here's some like really fun stories of Luke being a god tier fucking Force user.
Awesome Force user, yeah.
Awesome Force user, and like Leia and Han running around doing fun quests and all that kind of stuff. We want to do that show. But in terms of writing a trilogy of movies, of sequels, it feels like the next part of the journey is Luke as a Jedi Master training Padawans, and Ben being the eldest of those Padawans.
I agree.
That's the start of that story for me. And then everything from there is a reaction to that, in terms of Leia being in Senate and Han being in the wind. I still don't know what Han's doing. I haven't locked in on that.
Your idea of just simply talking about timelines in general is interesting, because it's like, say for a second it was 80 years after.
And we can... Our mainline characters die. They have their happy ending.
Yeah.
It's the system that follows that maybe fails. I don't know.
You know? Like the generations, yeah. If it was, say for a second, just an example, it were about their grandchildren.
Yeah.
And it's like, were those, like the war has kind of been forgotten. If most people have died who were alive in that time. You know?
Yeah. I don't know. It's something that sprouted out of my head just because we were, within the past 2 weeks, just ripping everything apart and reconstructing everything. And I was just thinking, maybe if we just, like, if I ripped everything apart, I started somewhere completely different. I started in, like, 80 years after. Your problem is then that you're recreating, like, the world building. You have nothing.
You're going to have to start from scratch.
You are starting absolutely from scratch. You have nothing to really infer off. Which is kind of like what we've been doing with the Underworld, but we've been grabbing what we already had from the Underworld, and we've been using that to infer a sort of path, a natural progression of where it would be.
Yeah,
and also doing the same with the New Republic and how that would operate.
Yeah, using Maul and Kira and like the Crimson Dawn and everything we saw in the Shadow Collective from Clone Wars, and trying to follow a path of where that would leave us with Jabba dying at Return of the Jedi.
You go so far in the future that nothing even matters.
Yeah.
You know?
I think, if we were going to write a realistic story where it's like, oh, the shadow of the Empire looms in the past, you would do it 80 years from now. But it's Star Wars, so we're going to go do I'd say we got to do the dumb version, which is 40 years or 20, 25 years.
People want to see those original trilogy characters, God damn it.
I want to see them.
It really is a testament, I think, to how lived in, like, Tatooine felt when you're watching it for the first time, or how real the cause of the Rebels feels, even though it's just like one movie. Just showing this world, being able to grab you for what, an hour 30, hour 50, however long that movie is.
A New Hope.
A New Hope. I think it's a testament to very good filmmaking, very good.
I'd say very good
building.
editing. I don't think
excellent editing.
I don't think Lucas is that good of a filmmaker. I think he's a bit of an idiot.
I think he's a good filmmaker. I think
he's a great writer. I think he comes up with really marvelous stories.
Not dialogue.
That's interesting. I think he's a strange
not dialogue. No,
a strange writer, but like really great stories. I agree.
Yeah, no, I don't think he's a good filmmaker, because just like watching the documentary on how they made A New Hope and how he ran out of budget in like the first like couple months.
Oh, absolutely.
He's a moron.
He'd only done one feature before that. It was bizarre. Honestly.
Exactly.
That film was so incredibly also saved in the edit, and it's amazing. It's
Exactly.
We should all watch American Graffiti sometime.
We should watch American Graffiti. If you don't know American Graffiti, it's his first feature, and it's got fucking old mate
Harrison Ford, Billy D. Williams, and Ron Howard. Back when Ron Howard was an actor.
Well, there you go. That's fun.
Yeah. So.
Any final notes on topic before we lose track entirely?
No, look, thank
Our
you
last
very
final
much.
whinge moments.
Just so you know, I think we should tell them what's to come, so they're not listening to this episode feeling really like, wow, this is
down.
Let's pick it up.
These guys aren't going anywhere.
Yeah. So the project
we told you we were giving up.
No, project we got coming up is pretty exciting. Let's tell them.
So 6 episodes, 6 weeks of us writing. It'll be Act 1 followed by Act 1 again. That's the first 2 episodes. That's the goal. We might change it. But the idea is we'll come in with our ideas for Act 1 of Force Awakens. We rewrite it and we go, okay, here's our Act 1. And then the next week after that, we scrap it all and we start from scratch and we do Act 1 again. And hopefully by that time, we've done the vomit draft version of Act 1, and then we've done a refined version of Act 1. And it looks and sounds really good. We're happy with it. And we go, cool, we'll move on. And we do that again for Act 2 and 3, and that's the 6 weeks. The end of that, for the episode 7 of the series, we're going to try and have it be, we've finished the whole treatment or the whole script, whatever it is, and we can present that to you on this podcast show in an hour. and that'll be the episode.
Yeah, if you're worried about us writing this like Act 1, 2, 3 at a time, don't worry. We do have the story plan in our minds. We have our story plans so that we're not just like writing with no direction.
Yeah,
Mm.
it'll be structured. It'll be planned. That's the goal.
Yeah.
But before that, of course, more importantly, is Barbary Freak episode.
Yeah. But eventually, yes. So at the end of this all, we'll have 7 treatment done. We can finally move on to episode 8. We can finally get there.
We'll see. I'm not super keen to move on to episode 8.
Treatment? No.
I mean, not keen in the sense I want to be happy with where we're at for episode 7 first.
Yeah.
So at least have a pretty solid pathway.
Yeah, I think that's a big tricky thing as well. Is like we're right at the start here, and you know, as big believers in creating an overall cohesive, good trilogy before making the first movie, which is what they should have done in Hollywood. We want to get our facts right first. We want to get all the context and world building done first because that's where you should be starting with all this stuff, so that you can see the arc of Gravity's rainbow and follow it to its terminus.
And that's the beauty of having.
That's from Knives Out.
Nice.
That's the beauty of having it as a treatment. Is like we can go back and we can change, and we can then eventually have a really cohesive treatment for an entire trilogy.
Yeah. But figuring out the first one is like, what's the context of everything leading up to this movie? Because then episode 8, the context is the stuff we wrote in episode 7, which is a lot easier to work with. So I think...
And then we'll be making episodes on what our treatment got wrong with every character.
Oh my God,
7.
fixing our own podcast? Absolutely.
I mean, that's what a writer's room is.
Exactly.
Exactly. Fixing the sequel trilogy.
Someone should make a podcast based on this podcast.
Oh, they totally should.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
If we can just go infinite levels of insufferable white guys on a podcast. It never ends.
Yeah, I can't wait for that.
It's just podcast all the way down.
Here's what fixing the sequel trilogy got wrong.
Oh, dude, I can hear it now. I can hear it now.
These guys don't understand Star Wars.
Oh, man.
I don't. They're right, I don't.
Yeah, they're right.
Fair enough.
Correct. I never read the Legends books, and I never will. But that has been our very wildly whinging, non-structured episode of the show today. Here's a lot of our problems and what we've been thinking about and how to fix them. Next week, we'll be talking about something else entirely, perhaps Barbary Freak, perhaps not. But
Either way, I'm not going to be here.
Either way, you're not going to be here, so it doesn't matter for you. And then after that, we're going to be doing a writing boot camp where we're going to try and force ourselves into a gulag of writing where we just write and write and write, and that's it. And we create, hopefully, what is a good treatment. But until then, this has been Fixing the Sequel Trilogy. You can catch us here every week talking about Star Wars, trying to fix the sequels if we can. We'll see. It remains to be seen. And you can find us on Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, YouTube, not Twitter. And until next time, may the Force be with you.